This episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast is sponsored by the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for perimenopausal women. As a woman in the modern world, our hormones are taking a battering. They're impacted by the food we eat, the toxins we're exposed to, such as when we eat out of plastic takeaway containers, or even worse, reheat food in them. Please don't do this. If you're handling FPOS receipts, filling the car with fuel, eating non-organic produce that hasn't been washed effectively, plus so much more things add to our toxic load every day. Even though our bodies are designed to effectively manage toxins, they haven't evolved as quickly as our toxic world has, unfortunately. So our body does need support. Symptoms such as stubborn weight gain, fatigue, disrupted periods, irritability, and gut health issues can be a sign that you'd benefit from a gentle detox. And that's why I developed the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for perimenopausal women. This free guide has an abundance of information to get you started on your very own DIY detox. And if you'd like to upgrade to VIP, it's only $47 for a limited time. I used to sell this program for $247. The upgrade gives you the recipes, including plenty of plant-based options, the meal planner, the shopping list template, the video workshop, and so much more. Click the link in the show notes to learn more now. Take care of your hormones. They are a critical part of your health as a woman. Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast. Today's episode is kind of an odd one in that normally I do a fair amount of preparation for each episode, a little bit of research, making sure that I'm putting together the episode in a structure of sorts. But I'll have to be honest with you, I have not done that today. I have been sitting thinking, what do I want to talk about? And what is coming in, I guess, strongly as something I want to talk about is the power of food as medicine. And so I just thought I would jump on. And I can always delete this recording if I decide I don't want to publish it. But I just thought I'd just come on and talk about my passion for nutrition and why I have such a passion for nutrition, and particularly why I think it's so important for women in perimenopause and postmenopause. In fact, it's absolutely critical. What I find when I'm working with women, or even just talking with women generally, is that there seems to be this perception that when our hormones start going haywire with our perimenopause and menopausal transition, that one of the few things we can do is HRT or MHT, Menopause Hormone Therapy, as it's now called, is the big one that I have a lot of conversations about with people. And I'm pretty supportive of MHT, to be honest. And herbal medicine can be incredible also for helping manage hormones through this time. So that's great. That's another thing, another tool, I guess, in the toolbox. And the thing is, these two things are not magic. If you are not addressing lifestyle and what you're putting into your body, whether that is food, whether that is water, whether that is other beverages, which we'll talk about today, it really is a holistic approach. You can't just take the magic pill, whether that be MHT or herbs, and expect that that is going to control everything that's going on in your body and that you're going to magically feel better. Absolutely, you can get quite a bit of symptom control using those things, but ultimately we are designed to take in food to make our body work optimally. And that is our gut microbiome, feeding our gut microbiome the best foods for it to work optimally, for our brain to work optimally, for our muscles to maintain and grow. For everything in our body, we are designed to take in food and specific nutrients that do specific jobs. And it's not just as simple as food as fuel, which I think certainly for me before I became a nutritionist, I very much saw food as fuel. I had for a long time a mentality of food as fuel. And that very much is rooted in the calories in, calories out model, which, as you know, I really kind of detest. It set up a lot of really bad mindsets around food and ideas around food and weight in particular. And that is sort of what food as fuel, that philosophy for me anyway, came into, is just eating to fuel the body from an energy point of view. I had no idea about, certainly not the gut microbiome. I mean, a lot of people didn't know much about the gut microbiome back then. And I think we still are only scratching the surface with it. But also, yeah, I certainly didn't have that thought even of the quality of the food. And I looked at macros. I used to use MyFitnessPal a lot, and it was all about calories and macros and nothing to do with the micronutrients. So am I getting enough selenium? Am I getting enough iodine? Am I getting enough manganese? None of that. And to be honest, I don't want any of you guys to be stressing out over, oh my gosh, now I've got to think about the micronutrients. No. The thing is, that will take care of itself if you are eating widely. If you're eating lots of different colored veggies and fruits and having good quality proteins from a multitude of different sources, that will take care of itself. You don't need to sit out and work out how much of these things you're having, okay? So I didn't want to open up that Pandora's box. But what I did want to just mention that the food actually talks to our genes. Right? That's so cool. Don't you reckon? Food actually talks to our genes. Every single mouthful of food that we eat on a daily basis initiates this complex conversation at a cellular level, at a genetic DNA level, right? These conversations determine whether our DNA or our genes get switched on or off. And I haven't probably talked about this for a long time. I used to talk a lot about this when I used to teach a lot of meditation. And I've done quite a number of podcasts talking about this, how even though we may have the genes for certain diseases, it doesn't mean those genes will be expressed. And lifestyle has a lot to do with how those genes are expressed and whether or not those genes are going to be expressed. And this is really important because I think a lot of people, when they find out, for example, that there is, a lot of cardiovascular disease in their family, and they think, oh, well, my mother has diabetes, my father has diabetes, my grandparents on both sides of my family have diabetes, therefore I'm going to get diabetes, therefore there's nothing I can do about it, so I might as well just eat all of the things now because later in life when I have diabetes, I'm not going to be allowed to do that. And having a mindset like that will almost guarantee that you get diabetes later in life. And so what I'm saying when we're talking about the genes sort of switching on and switching off, and this is the science of nutrigenomics. If you want to learn more about this, just pop nutrigenomics into your search and look at Go Nutrigenomics, actually PubMed, and that will actually get you proper research rather than blogs. And that will actually give you the right information. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. But yeah, what we know now is that just because you have the gene doesn't mean you're going to get the illness. And you can do so much to help maintain a healthy DNA by using the right foods for you, by having the right lifestyle modifications in there. And I'll talk about food first. When I talk about the right foods for you, there's a few different ways we can approach this. Firstly, it's looking, when I'm assessing a client, it's like, what is going on in the body? Are there any actual symptoms there that may be signs of food intolerance that perhaps the client hasn't considered? Like, for example, skin rashes. And this is my personal story, which you've heard, if you're a long-time listener, you've heard this before, is that when I hit my kind of mid-40s.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
How would you like to have increased energy, balanced hormones, glowing skin, and your ideal weight in just 3 months? Sounds awesome, right? Imagine having your very own hormone balancing and weight loss strategy totally personalized to you based on your body biochemistry to release excess weight, say goodbye to pesky perimenopause symptoms, and decrease inflammation in your body, which of course leads to decreased inflammaging. That's right, ladies, there are age-defying benefits as well. Oh, and of course, you have me at your fingertips for expert support so you never feel stuck or confused. I love supporting women on their weight loss journeys, and I've packaged up the award-winning Metabolic Balance Program with my signature hormone management system, giving you the Glow Protocol. This 12-week one-to-one coaching program is you and me, nailing down your health and weight loss goals, creating your personalized plan using your blood tests, a thorough health assessment, and your food preferences. And then we get started with me supporting you every step of the way. Even if you've tried everything, even if you have resistant weight and complex medical conditions, the power of personalized nutrition, mindset coaching, and my support is transformational and gets results. And I'm not even exaggerating, even if I do say myself. So if you're ready to embrace feeling like your younger self again, lose excess weight, manage health conditions, and regain your confidence, you can just DM me at Susie Garden Wellness or email me hello@susiegarden.com, and I'll pop a link in the show notes. I developed eczema on my hands in particular, but then it actually went into my face, around my eyes. It was like getting worse and worse. And I hadn't really changed anything much in my diet or my lifestyle. I couldn't work out what was going on. And I actually just thought I was allergic to, there's a few things. I thought it was dairy, because dairy is a really common food intolerance. And I was a nutrition student at the time this was going on. So my stress level from my corporate job had gone down dramatically, but I guess there's quite a bit of stress that goes on when you're a student because you're constantly being assessed and your time is not your own. And then I learned about menopause and perimenopause and realized, even though I didn't know I was in perimenopause, I would have been. And definitely we see an increase in skin, rashes, itchiness, all sorts of skin conditions when we're in perimenopause because of the drop in estrogen, which helps, support our skin barrier. So we get a dryness in the skin. We get the cell walls aren't as, not as strong, I guess. It's probably not quite the right word, but let's just use that. And so they break down more easily. They're more responsive to allergens that might be around. And there were certainly things for me, like I know I'm allergic to couch grass, for example. And, when you have dogs and you walk them, they're always going to be walking in couch grass. So I knew that was a thing. But this itchy skin can be from hormones, it can be from food intolerances, and it can be a combination of both. So I know for me personally, I thought it was dairy. I dropped out a lot of my dairy at the time and didn't really see that much of an improvement, to be honest. And then when I did my training for metabolic balance and got my program, it said no tomatoes. And I'm like, what? I have tomatoes every lunchtime, every dinner, pretty much. Loved them. I removed them all of my skin condition went away within like 2 to 3 days. And I thought, this can't be right. This cannot be right. So I reintroduced the tomatoes, bang, skin terrible. Off the tomatoes again, skin great. So now I know that I can't have them every day anymore, and that's fine. I've learned to live with that. But it's just this example of how you don't necessarily understand or know that certain foods are causing problems, inflammation, whatever, in your body. And so when I'm assessing clients for their symptoms, I'm looking for these signs of inflammation. I'm looking for gut health issues such as bloating, reflux, excess burping, excess flatulence, chronic diarrhea, chronic constipation, floating stools, yellow stools, excess smelliness, all that sort of stuff, to look at, well, what is the gut health like? What is the inflammation like? And this can be addressed with food. And this can be addressed by having foods that are going to be having these conversations with your DNA in a positive way, so that we're reducing inflammation. Remembering inflammation is the root cause of every single mental health condition, physical health condition, pretty much. And so reducing inflammation is super important. And we can do that with food. Having foods that are high in antioxidants, that are high in polyphenols, that are going to help support our gut health, because there's a huge interaction between our gut and our immune system. So when we are choosing foods, we don't have to go into MyFitnessPal and look at what are the calories. No. Or how much selenium does this have? No. Just have a broad variety of beautifully multicolored whole foods, ideally chemical-free if you can get it, pesticide-free, organic, or just wash them really, really well. The other thing you can do is go to the EWG website, which is the Environmental Working Group. Every year they publish the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, and they are the foods that are using the most pesticides that year in North America, which is usually very similar to Australia. So that can be really handy, because you can look at that and go, well, these are the Clean 15. I can get away with not getting organic or pesticide free with those. I'll just wash them. But the Dirty Dozen, you really, if you can afford it, get the organic version, or at least the pesticide free if possible. Otherwise, really wash them extremely, extremely well, just to get rid of all of those chemicals and pesticides, because we know that they have not so great effects on our gut health, amongst many other things. So yeah, I think I'm going off track, which is why I usually plan my podcast so that I can keep myself on track, but that's okay. So yeah, what am I wanting to say with that? Yeah, lots of brightly colored fruits, veggies. I mentioned, I think last week in the podcast, the 5 and 2, if you want to, if you need some sort of structure around it. So 2 pieces of fruit, 5 pieces of vegetables. To me, that doesn't seem enough. I know from a lot of the gut health studies that I've done, if you're looking at having a really healthy gut microbiome, and I'm struggling to remember whether it was 20 different plant foods a week or 30 different plant foods a week. Aim for 30. If you have 30 different plant foods a week, that is extremely helpful to fostering a healthy gut microbiome. So when I'm talking about different plant foods, I'm talking about nuts, seeds, fruits, veggies, legumes, mushrooms, sprouts, all those sorts of things. Anything that had its origin in a plant food that is fairly unprocessed. So if you're drinking a lot of wine, that doesn't really count as grapes, okay? It's got to be the actual grape. So yeah, 30 different plant foods a week. Aim for that. That will really help in terms of getting the variety of micronutrients that your body needs to function well, so that when you're eating your food, and you know that every mouthful of food is having a complex conversation at a cellular level with the DNA. Like, really think about this. This is not science fiction. This is actually what happens. So if you think about, well, I'm having a green smoothie with, coconut water, kale, flaxseed oil, avocado, some nuts, some seeds, all of that sort of stuff, versus having, I nearly said a brand name, I won't say that, a hamburger from a fast food chain that might have a limp bit of lettuce, a slice of tomato, a meat patty that's probably full of, definitely full of preservatives and additives, on a pretty low nutrition level bread. Yeah, it's not ideal, right? I don't want that having a conversation with my cells. I don't want that having a conversation with my DNA and influencing my DNA. Do you? I don't. So that's kind of how I like to think about food when we're looking at the health of the body. And that's not saying I never have treats. My friends know, and I know a lot of my friends listen to the podcast, they know that I like to have a drink. I like to have dessert. I like to, eat out. But I also balance that out by eating at home as often as I can during the week in particular. Always having breakfast at home pretty much. Even if I do have a regular breakfast club with some beautiful friends, and I will generally still have my green smoothie, or I'll have something that's more whole food based before I go, and I'll either have a coffee and a sweet treat, or if I do have breakfast, it would be the most whole food breakfast I can possibly order off that menu. So that includes not ordering things like scrambled eggs, because that's going to be full of cream, butter, dairy, salt, all of the things. Poached egg, way better choice. So it's just thinking about your food like that, because getting back to my original topic, when your hormones are kind of out of whack and your body is really struggling, and I know that for many of my women that are listening to this podcast, their bodies are struggling, your minds are struggling. That's probably why you're listening to the podcast. It's because we're all going through this together. And you think, well, at least I've got MHT up my sleeve if I really feel like I want to do that. But it is not the magic pill. If you don't have the right foods on board, then those hormones, they're only going to do so much. And believe me, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 16 years, and even our most well-researched drugs, they don't work 100% on 100% of people. There's some things these drugs can do, but they're not a magic pill. And any of you that might have, for example, high blood pressure, it's very common to have 2 or 3 different medications required to get that blood pressure under control. It's not just having one pill and then you're done for most people. So, these drugs aren't just a magic cure. So really look at, no matter what sort of medical condition you might have currently, or if you're just trying to stay healthy for your future and for your current situation, really look at, okay, what am I eating on a weekly basis? And is it really the stuff that I want to be having complex communications with my cells and my DNA and influencing that DNA for my future health? Really have a think about that. So that, from a food point of view, I guess is probably all I want to cover, but there's more, because there's lifestyle, obviously. Now, when I'm talking about lifestyle, it's pretty much everything else. It's the mind-body stuff. So what is your stress level like on a daily basis? And that's not to say that, oh, well, I've got a lot of stressors in my life, so there's nothing I can do about that. You can learn to regulate your response to those stressors. And often when you have the right food on board, that helps as well. And I see this a lot in clients in the first few weeks of their program. They go, gosh, I just feel so much calmer. And there's probably a number of reasons. One, the inflammation will have gone down. We know when you have gut issues, you have brain issues. I don't know if that's quite the right way to describe it, but if you have gut inflammation, it's likely there's some low-grade inflammation going on in the brain. Now, that is not something you need to be scared of and going to the doctor and getting antibiotics or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But we know with, for example, brain fog, which a lot of women have in perimenopause and post-menopause, that it's just what we call this leaky brain or this low-level brain inflammation. And absolutely, we can fix that just with the right food choices. And also, the other thing that we need is good brain chemicals such as our serotonin, our dopamine, our melatonin, all of those sorts of things. And food has a huge influence on that as well as your breathing techniques, as well as spending time in nature. We know that spending time in nature has a profound impact on our DNA, has a profound impact on our ability to handle the stressors in our lives. So spending a little bit of time in nature, whether that's walking the dog, whether that is going for a swim, whether that's just standing with your feet on some grass, whether it's looking out the window at the blue sky, or whether it is feeling the sunlight on your skin, spending time in nature is a profound way to impact your DNA. And therefore, your experience of perimenopause and menopause and your health ongoing. So I mentioned breathing, obviously other things like, meditation is great if it suits your mind. For some people, they just can't get their mind to settle, and that's where breathing can be amazing because we all have to breathe. And also, of course, movement. That's probably the last thing I'll talk about in this podcast. And finding movement that you love, whether that's dancing in your living room, whether that is walking, doing a HIIT class, cycling, swimming, reformer, which, as you know, I love, yoga, any of those things where when you're doing those activities, it's bringing you joy. Also, it is moving your body, so it'll be improving your flexibility. It will be helping to flush out toxins. It will be improving your muscle mass, your strength, your ability to move and maintain. Movement is such an important part of many people's lives. Like even just to deal with things in daily life, being able to lift, being able to move things is actually, I was thinking about on the weekend, I was moving around some plants and things like that and picking up my dogs and picking up their dog bowls. And, it's just all these little things that you do on a daily basis that require your body to be in a pretty reasonable state. Like I've got, as I've mentioned many times, a chronic neck shoulder issue. So I'm always very mindful of that. And when I'm going through periods where it's not feeling good, then it really impacts my ability to do all of those everyday activities, which, are necessary. So it makes those simple things really difficult. But if I know that if I continue my gym, if I continue my reformer, if I am well hydrated, if I'm eating well, then all of that settles down, that inflammation, that tightness, that pain settles down, my sleep better, and everything in life feels better when all of that is in balance, including hormones. So I think that's all I'm going to talk about today. I know I've been a little bit all over the place, but I just wanted to kind of freeform it today. And I hope that has been interesting. If you've got any questions, I'd love to hear from you. I always love getting little messages. It just really makes my day. Because as I've often said, I'm just standing in my office with my 3 doggies, just recording this, thinking, is anybody listening? I know people are, but it is really nice to get that feedback. So I hope you're having a great week so far. And I'll be back on Thursday with Q&A. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts, or the follow button if you're on Spotify, so that you get each new episode delivered to you every week. If you like free stuff, then head to the show notes and click the link to receive my free Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for perimenopausal women. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.